Greetings, YouTube. I am back here today with my 2024 RAV4 Prime XSE with premium package, and today I'm going to do a quick tour of a lot of the options, if not all of them, on the multi-information display, which is this 12.3-inch customizable thing here that is kind of difficult to understand, and unless you read the entire manual and you're kind of a technically inclined person, you might have some trouble customizing it. So today we're going to go through some of those options and talk about what's different between these options and the ones that exist on the 2023 XSE. There are a couple things that change between 2023 and 2024, and then there's more things, of course, that are different between the premium package and the standard XSE. So first, let's talk about how the functional stuff is laid out. You actually have 3 pages of presets, and if you hit left and right here without hitting OK, you'll see that you get this hold OK to change setting thing here. And see how it shows 3 different pages? These are actually 3 different presets entirely of laid out widgets on either side here. The whole landscape changes when you go back and forth. Now, if you hold OK after you select one of those, then you get into these things. So these are, you can see there's little bullet points over there. This, you can scroll through to get to different options on what displays here in the center of the multi-information display. That is the lane keep stuff. It shows if there's a car in front of you, if you've got like radar cruise control on, dynamic radar cruise control. There, it just displays up there, which I prefer. I think it's a little bit more subtle. See it up there? And if you continue going down, you get the settings. There's messages too, and then there's nothing. Before you head to settings, you can go left and right here, and depending on which page you've selected at the beginning, as I mentioned, you can actually go to these and further select what is displayed. So you see all these different options. I went through these in my first video, so if you want to know more about those, check that out. None of this has changed on the 2024 or premium package model, but you can see here there are lots of widgets that you can scroll through. That's navigation, by the way, which links to Android Auto. That one does work. The HUD does not. I'll get to that in a second with Android Auto, but does apparently with Apple CarPlay and Apple Maps. It's a coding thing. And also, of course, with the Toyota built-in navigation. So anyway, that's how you do that. You go left and right, you select these. You can customize them as you wish. Same options are available on both sides. So anyway, back to this over here. Settings, if you hit OK on, this is where all the magic happens, right? So this is where you can customize stuff. On the premium package, you have a head-up display. Of course, you can turn it on and off. And you can hold OK with many of these options to get, and it shows you down here, it says hold OK to change settings. See that? If you hold OK, it actually gives you further options. So if I go into the head-up display and I hold OK, then I get brightness and position. You can go up and down in brightness. By the way, one thing to note about this, I actually think that having the brightness all the way up may reduce the PWM on the display, pulse width modulation. Pulse width modulation is how they control brightness of many LCD displays, and I believe since this is simply an LCD display in that little box there that projects onto the windshield, I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of these videos show a really flickery looking HUD. And actually that might have some effect on people who are sensitive to pulse width modulation, which is a lot of the public, by the way. So if you tend to get headaches after driving in these cars for a while, any Toyota for that matter, it may in fact be because of PWM that is used to control brightness on these HUDs. My theory is that by having this on maximum brightness, you actually may mitigate those effects. So anyway, enough about that. You can also position them. It goes all the way up and all the way down. There's a ton of options for positioning. So no matter how tall you are, you should have no trouble with that. Driving support actually shows different options on what displays here. So you can get tachometer settings between tachometer, hybrid system, and blank. So if you go to tachometer, I don't know if you can see this, but it will change it to that, of course, which is a conventional tachometer. And if you go back to hybrid system, it shows you this. I prefer this. I think it's cool to see when you're charging, like when you're braking, you know, it shows regenerative braking versus eco and power. That's a pretty nifty display, I think. Navigation shows on the left side navigation prompts, but that only works, as far as I can tell, with the built-in navigation. And driving assist is the next thing down, which of course is the lane keep stuff that I mentioned on the multi-information display earlier. And there's also an option for compass, and that just shows a compass when it's prompting, or when it's appropriate for that, when you're like not watching directions or whatever, for instance, and you don't have the driver assist on. So if you turn this back off, then you'll see the compass display. See that? And I can, of course, turn the compass off. So all this stuff is customizable, which is pretty neat. The last thing is audio. I believe that simply shows what is playing, you know, in terms of the audio. So again, about the navigation, I want to cover this real quick. Android Auto does not appear. The directions do not on this, whereas apparently Apple CarPlay with Apple Maps does, which indicates it's probably an issue with coding on Android's side, or specifically on Google Maps' side, because there's no real difference between the technologies. My understanding is they both work over the 5 gigahertz band. They both process the video on the phone, and then they project it simply to the car screens. So the car has really nothing to do with the processing except for maybe some messaging, which means that there's probably a way Google could fix that, but go figure. That's just that's on them. But the moral of the story is if you want the best directions, you'll have to use the Toyota built-in navigation app, which of course they want you to do because they make money on it with subscriptions. So it's kind of irritating. That's the way it goes. Other brands are different. You can also rotate the HUD, which, you know, it's subtle, but you can go a little bit either direction there. So anyway, that's the HUD options. Lane tracing, you can hold, okay, to get to options here, and then it will change lane centering. You can turn it on and off, of course. You can do alert options, which you can either do it buzzing of the steering wheel or a ding. I prefer to have it buzz the steering wheel. It's less disturbing to people in the cabin. Sway warning is like if you're falling asleep. I don't really have that trouble. I get pretty good sleep, so I've got that on minimum, and I do have it on just in case. Sway sensitivity here is, I'm sorry, this is the lane centering sensitivity. This is the sway sensitivity. There's 3 options for that, so I've got it on minimal. I don't really need it more than that. Blind spot monitor, you can turn it on and off. If you turn it off, you see the little light over there on the left-hand side appear to indicate that it's off. And you can hold OK to adjust the sensitivity and the brightness of that. The brightness actually indicates how bright it will be on the mirrors. There's 2 different settings. I like mine brighter because it is nice to know when there's somebody in the lane next to me, and I don't want to have to guess about that. And it's cool that the car does that stuff. I love that feature. Pre-collision system, you hold OK. There's no on and off here, but there is. You hold OK to get to this. You can change the sensitivity. There are 3 different settings here, and then, of course, you can turn the pre-collision system all the way off. Parking sensors, again, you can turn them on and off, or you can hold OK to get into settings, and that's just volume. It shows you how loud it is. By the way that works, in case you haven't seen it, and I'm sure you probably have, if you reverse, see how it shows where I'm about to hit things. You can also obviously frontward, and it also shows this, well, when you're driving it actually appears a little more obviously, but anyway, that's how the parking sensors work. They are very effective. Of course, that's pretty simple technology. A lot of cars have that now. Then we've got rear cross traffic alert, which is available on, most of these are available also on the XSE, by the way. The big difference here, just to kind of start talking about what's the difference between the premium package and the regular, the head-up display does not exist on the regular XSE. The pre-collision system, I'm sorry, the parking sensors do not exist on the XSE, which I think is a glaring omission, actually. That's kind of interesting to me, because even, you know, cheaper cars have that stuff. The parking support brake also does not exist on the regular XSE. So those are the big things that are missing from the regular XSE that you get with the premium package. But anyway, the rear cross traffic alert, same thing goes here. It's just for volume. You can't adjust sensitivity on that, but it works great. I use that all the time, and it appears on the screen when there's a car coming by. It's pretty easy to identify that stuff using this car. And then you can just simply turn off the parking support brake. This is where the car actually stops itself if it detects an obstacle in front of or behind the car. So pretty neat. Road sign assist. Again, this is a standard feature on Toyota safety system. This is where it reads the road signs and displays them for you so that you don't have to second guess what the speed limit was or whatever. It does a pretty good job of keeping track of that. It's usually accurate, I've discovered. You can hold OK, and you can get notification methods if it's above the speed limit, if you want any notification at all, and if you want visual and audio or simply visual. I have only visual on mine because I go above the speed limit a lot. Same thing here. This is like if you go through a stop sign or a yield sign, I think, or something like that. I think it just alerts you. And then the notification level, that is how far above the speed limit you have to be before it really pesters you. And of course I have mine in the max, but I promise I don't drive like a crazy person. But anyway, vehicle settings, you can hold OK here to get to additional settings. So you actually had charging settings. Hang on just a moment. So in charging settings here, you can set a charging schedule. Of course, it's easier probably just to do this on your phone app. You can also adjust the current. I've got mine on max, but if you have problems with your tripping breakers, you can go down to like 8 amp or even 16 amp. That may be helpful in some cases. And then the battery cooler and heater, you can turn on and off. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. Dynamic radar cruise control. You can adjust the curve speed reduction factor, which is how much the car actually reduces its speed when it comes into an oncoming curve, using the cameras and the yaw sensors to predict where it's headed. It does a pretty good job, but I still think it approaches pretty alarmingly quick sometimes, so I'm pretty careful about that. This is the back door. You can turn it on and off entirely, whether hands-free works. The opening adjustment is how much it opens up. You can adjust that. The volume when it opens, like how much of an alert you get in the cabin. Tire pressure warning system, you really don't need to mess with this unless you're doing like tire changes yourself or something. Schedule maintenance just shows you, well, no, I do not want to reset the data. And the rear seat reminder I've got off. This is like if you open a rear door and you have the ignition on, it will actually remember to remind you to check the rear seat when you get out of the car to make sure there's no like kids or cargo or something that you're leaving behind. Oops. And then going back into this again at the very bottom, you've got meter settings, and you saw this in the XSE video, so I don't need to go too much into detail here, but you get language, you get units, you can change how you want it to measure or show measurements. Meter type gives you different meter settings. You can turn the widget on and off. See those widgets go on and off down there? You can adjust whether you want a single dial, which I think is pretty nifty, and there's still plenty of information, or a dual dial, which gives you different options there for the left and right. There's different options for each of these. There's another video I posted, which I will link to, that has a little more of a deeper dive into this stuff, but then you've got different dial styles. I like it on smart. I just think it looks the coolest. That's also the default, so I'm going to leave it on that. Dial type will actually show you these different types of dials. You can go hybrid system or speedometer. I do prefer speedometer. I just think it's really neat. I don't know why this is even an option. It shows you whether or not you're actually operating an EV. Don't know why you wouldn't want to know that. You can do trip average or total average for that, and then eco guidance just gives you like basically tips. See, this is all just basic stuff here, so there's nothing really exciting in these menus. The pop-up display, you can turn on and off what you want to be popped up about. Like basically when you have navigation prompts, whether you want it to come up on, it used to be the multi-information display here, but actually with the HUD, I believe it's only on the HUD that you see these on the premium package. So that's something that's different. Telephone is when you're calling somebody, it shows the number and then the name or whatever. Audio operation is like, pause, play, and I think the name of the song, I'm not mistaken, it does show that, but I could be wrong on the HUD. And the volume is, whether you turn it up and down, if it shows when you turn it up and down, if it shows like the actual progress of the volume on the HUD in this case, or the multi-information display if you only have an XSE. Voice control is, of course, when you're using like Toyota or something like that to talk to it. That's pretty much it. Then you can restore the default settings. Calendar is grayed out because if you have GPS time date on, it is not something that you have to set because it sets itself automatically. One other thing to mention that is absent from the 2024 model that exists in the 2023 model, which I think is a little bit strange, is under vehicle settings. You do not get the option to disable the charger lock. That is conspicuously missing. It actually is completely removed from this car. They talk about it in the manual. They don't talk about how they removed it, but they have it in the manual for the 2023 version, and it's absent for the 2024. There's no way to do it on the 2024. On the 2024, they simplified the whole process so that basically if your car door is locked, if all the car doors are locked, and you plug in the car, it will automatically lock the charger. I kind of don't prefer that because I never really need my charger locked unless I explicitly want to do it because I always charge in my garage. But they're trying to amplify it and make it simpler for the public, I guess, so that you don't have to think about it. So if you lock your car, it automatically locks the charger as well. If you unlock the car door, it automatically unlocks the charger as well. I guess that's fine. I think it's kind of silly why they wouldn't provide an option for that. I wish it was at least available in the ODB. So that you could maybe use Carista or something like that to adjust the customizable settings, but you cannot. Just a quick note about that. I just wanted to mention that in case anybody was curious why that was absent. It actually is a difference between 2023 and 2024 and not a difference between the XSE and the XSE with premium package. So that pretty much wraps up the tour of the multi-information display stuff. There's not much else to talk about here. I do have a lot more to cover about this vehicle, tips and tricks about little things I've discovered. I'm compiling a list. I think some of those you're going to find kind of surprising. I haven't seen them mentioned anywhere. And I'm going to come back with that pretty shortly. So if you like what you're seeing here and this has been helpful to you, please click the subscribe button. It will help me make more videos. It will incentivize me to make more videos in the future. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.